Jupiter and Saturn do not possess psychology. They designate social programs and models. The role of society in our life, models of life, of money and work, among other models. Venus opposition Saturn. It's fear of money. I have money and I'm afraid of having it. I don't have money. I'm afraid too. Afraid not to have it. There will be no freebies in the sphere of finance. Simple and easy ways to make money do not exist. Such an idea will not come to a child's mind. The patterns formed by the social planets enter the psyche of an individual after the age of 7 or 8 years. As soon as the moon begins to solidify its position, the social planets begin to manifest themselves then. The 5 personal planets represent everything that relates to the individual, the innate moments and the instincts, while Jupiter and Saturn are the acquired themes. At the lower level of man's development, the social planets can give negative results. Let's go back to the Venus-Saturn opposition. If the child often sees the lack of money in the family, he observes it, then this will subsequently become one of his social models, the fear of money. Many erroneous statements and myths about Jupiter and Saturn circulate in the astrological community. Many fairy tales are written about Jupiter and many horror stories are told about Saturn. In reality, Jupiter is understanding, philosophy, the overall picture, the long-distance goal, significance, and scale. Saturn is, on the contrary, precise and tangible notions, the concrete goal, the framework and power. Saturn or Kronos is the farther time. The social planets can denote additional mental functions or external events. A social planet is personal. If it is in the first house, which is the mixture of psychology and event, or is the ruler of the first house, or is in aspect with a personal planet from the Sun to Mars. The presence of a personal social planet in a chart gives color to the psychological characteristic of the astropsychological profile of the native. The non-personal social planet is not in the first house, is not the ruler of the first house, is not in aspect with a personal planet from the Sun to Mars. In this case, a social planet will describe the external events of the house. Saturn in the 7th house, being personal, corresponds to the instructions to limit, to respect the distance, to be patient, to wait. If I follow them, they will have an impact on my relationships, my union, on my partnerships. The non-personal Saturn will describe my partner. He is cold, severe. He has a certain social status. The personal Jupiter in house 10. My qualities as an expert and a teacher, my talent to shine, to organize others into a team and to lead them to a supreme objective, help me build my career to move forward. The non-personal Jupiter in house 10. My boss is an expert, he is ambitious. This is the outer layer of events and not my psychology. A non-personal social planet in a house will simply describe the background energy. Jupiter in house 12. There are a lot of conversations about esotericism around me, about migration, but it hovers around me like background energy and does not concern me directly. This parameter is easily worked in astromagic through crystals. The non-personal Saturn in house 2. There is a lot of information about money problems, poverty, and debts around me. Others talk to me about it. I hear others talking about these subjects, but that doesn't affect my life in any particular way. The personal Saturn in house 2 will describe my personal qualities. The fact that I do not spend money easily or that I sometimes get into debt. Mercury distinguishes a single detail. In the word astrology, I distinguish the logos part to emphasize that it is a science. In the example of coffee, the coffee bean, the cup, and the energy exist separately. On the lower pole of Mercury, I start dividing a detail into even smaller parts. The word astrology, or the letter L, is multiplied to infinity. Kairos is created. Mercury falls into its lower pole, that is to say, in the pole of Jupiter. When does this happen? When Mercury is afflicted, it then creates chaos, the obsession effect, when the person discusses something that is not relevant. The astrological graphic symbol of Jupiter is the crescent of the soul, the moon, which approaches the cross of matter, the earth or the ascendant. The soul penetrates matter and acts within it. Jupiter's orbital cycle is 12 years. The retrograde cycle lasts 1 year, and Jupiter transits in retrograde movement approximately 4 months per year. Jupiter determines the expansion of experience, the possibility of rich social contacts, and the richness and frequency of opportunities encountered. To know if this experience will be negative or positive, you will have to examine the aspects. In any case, active social experience is advantageous because the more social experience one has, the more opportunity one has to draw conclusions. Experience is the most valuable thing in this physical world. The influence of Jupiter manifests itself in the expansion of experience. And this is what gives a person a chance to evolve mentally and spiritually. If Jupiter is strong and the person has a high spiritual level, this means that in previous lives and as a result of rich social experience, she learned to exist in human society, to value and respect its laws, as well as those of religious institutions. With a strong Jupiter, the person is called by society to carry out social actions, receives recognition and respect, and is called to exercise high functions, which gives her more opportunities in everyday life. Jupiter also influences social benefits a person may receive. The fact that people around her consider her decent, honest, and of high moral character. This is important because our lives depend very much on how society treats us, and social fortunes lead to material prosperity. How do man's Jupiterian qualities develop during his spiritual evolution? At the beginning of the development, the concept of happiness in man is one-sided. Happiness comes down to the satisfaction of his natural needs, such as money, material goods, and clothing. At this stage, man is selfish. He desires the best for himself, often to the detriment of others, and the concept of happiness is associated only with material goods for him. He doesn't know how to identify himself with anything else. He is very interested in the possibility of winning the lottery, receiving an inheritance, or having a profitable marriage, and does not seek to work on himself and achieve heights. He sees happiness as a happy coincidence, a great opportunity or wealth that would fall on him from above. If Jupiter is afflicted, the person will have a big ease in breaking the law to satisfy her needs, not being averse to theft, or even murder in extreme cases. The less spiritually elevated she is, the less able she is to live in harmony in society. She does not know yet how to respect her social environment. Her motto is, "My money belongs to me." Dishonesty, greed, and vanity characterize man at this level. His evaluation of people around is based on their possessions, a quality fur coat, a car of a foreign brand. Such a person often seeks prestigious roles, social privileges, and access to power during her spiritual evolution. As a result of misfortunes and conflicts with society and persecution, the person leaves transformation and starts desiring supreme happiness for herself and others. In the beginning, she wishes happiness for those around her, for her family, her children, and her parents. Further on, her conception of happiness evolves. It is no longer happiness that just gives money, wealth, and prestigious objects, but also the one that comes with health, love, and well-being. The concept of happiness is expanding, yet it is limited to a very narrow circle of people. At this level of development, having a strong Jupiter, the person tends to be a believer and is attracted to religious forms, cults, and ceremonies, but the essence of the teachings is still neither necessary nor accessible to her. She is inclined to go to church and respects ritual forms. She is fasting and lights candles during the liturgy, believing she is doing something very spiritual. but is actually superficial religiously. She has a very one-sided attitude towards the institution of the church. In addressing God, she asks for prosperity, money, and luck, and all her appeals to God are like a plea to the highest authorities. An expansion of the concept of happiness takes place when the person feels happy when she is in contact with art and culture. At this level, she is freed from social cliches linked to the concept of happiness, as well as from the idea that the accumulation of wealth makes it possible to achieve happiness. She is now interested in questions of universal harmony and the meaning of human existence. Material values move to the background for her. The individual can already address questions of true faith and no longer questions of simple faith in rituals and ceremonies. He seeks God not at the church, but in his inner depths, trying to understand his own life and its problems. He now understands the call of all religious founders to turn inward, to look inside of oneself. When he goes to church, he demands nothing from God. His prayer changes radically, and it is no longer a selfish monologue. The person's understanding of happiness is also transformed. She is happy when she gives, when she is of service to others. At a high level of development, the tendency to give without expecting anything in return becomes a characteristic trait of man. The higher the level of development, the more difficult it is to imagine that he will spend his life replacing one material object with another. At this level of evolution, a new attitude is born, what we call idealism, the quest for supreme values, ideals, and categories. Optimism, altruism, sincerity, and open-mindedness are there. The highest manifestation of Mercury, wisdom, characterizes the individual. Generosity has no boundaries. Peacemaking and the ability to forgive are the natural characteristics of man. His internal changes result in his ability to influence those around him and his social environment. Jupiter is responsible for everything foreign, for other cultures and mentalities, for everything related to foreign countries and other cultures, for different mentalities. A trip to a foreign country for an excursion goes under Mercury because you do not immerse yourself in the other culture. The symbolism of Jupiter implies that you are dealing with another culture. It is a deep dive into the environment, migration too. Distant goal. Jupiter embodies the distant or long-term goal. What will be the final destination point? Saturn is a specific goal, for example, earning a concrete amount of money within this specific delay. Jupiter gives an abstract, vast objective. I want to be the best astrologer. Jupiter squares Moon. I am an eternal student. I am continually learning. I feel as if I knew nothing. I hesitate to become a guru because I don't reach the bar which is super high. In the negative, Jupiter is aggressive. It expands through rich knowledge and exaggeration, and this is its trap. Jupiter personifies a distant goal. If the goal is absent, Jupiter begins to amplify the present, skills, etc., but they do not find practical application. If there is no scale, then Jupiter begins to emphasize all kinds of details. Jupiter personifies the institute of religion. The worldview is under the responsibility of the Moon. Jupiter manages the institution of religion, but it will not show how religious the person is. To what extent the person is religious, believes in the supreme forces, in God. All this, it is under the responsibility of the Moon and the Sun. A person can be religious having the luminaries in Sagittarius, in Pisces, in aspects to Jupiter, Neptune. We turn to the luminaries to describe the native's worldview, justice. It is believed that Jupiter is responsible for the law. Let's think about the image of Zeus in mythology. He had his favorites to whom he forgave everything. They were characters whom he hated and forgave nothing at all, subjecting them to terrible punishments. In ancient Greek philosophy, justice does not exist. Aleister Crowley, a British occultist, tarot reader, and astrologer who lived in the 19th and 20th centuries, said when speaking of the major arcana justice or adjustment, "Nature is not fair, nature is exact. Justice does not exist in astrology either. My righteousness is justified by my place, by the place I occupy in the world. I am right if I unfold my birth chart correctly, playing the life scenarios according to its rules. Human justice is an artificial notion, it is an illusion, the first channel. The planet Jupiter, the signs of Sagittarius, House 9, fire element. The principles of Jupiter, expansion, large-scale effect, enlargement, volume, growth and development, authority, purpose, luck. Sagittarius, how is it? Playful, wise, large-scale, witty, philosophical, elevated, elitist, outsider, authoritarian, optimistic, sublime. The moon in Sagittarius. I have a need to be a person who knows everything, to give instructions to others. The need to be surrounded by the elite. I am attracted to foreign countries and I would like to live abroad. How big will be this desire to live far? The urge will be very strong, most likely, in the afflicted moon. House 9. The situations of respect, informal status, fame, elite knowledge, foreign countries, travel, worldview. The majority of universities correspond to House 3. House 9 embodies deep knowledge, astrology. Overseas, travel abroad, long-distance travel, the profession of a truck driver, receiving guests, any reception of people.